to the Dad Squad Solutions podcast, where we're made up of two dads and one aspiring dad. And we have another special guest with us, one that is near and dear to the Dad Squad family. Her name is Miss Dolene Lumiere. I can never say her name correctly. I'm sorry. I probably butchered that. But Dolene has been with us from basically day one. And she supported us every step of the way. And so we're so excited to have you with us today. Dolene, tell us a little bit about yourself and what are you doing here?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on the show. I feel really honored and really privileged. And hi, everyone. I am Dolene Lumiere, ministry leader and faith-based entrepreneur here in Bangkok. I'm the founder of Lumiere Braidscape. And I also have a great passion for building community and just spreading the gospel, spreading the love of Jesus. And I am excited to be here today because this conversation matters. Okay, so whether you are single, married, or somewhere in between, we are talking about marriage in a culture where it's not always the hot topic. I'm excited, to bring just a fresh and a real perspective, grounded in faith and practical for anyone that is navigating, relationships while staying true to their purpose. So I'm very excited to be here today.
Amazing. So the topic is when your circle isn't talking about marriage. So really focusing on the single people who have the mentality and idea to get married. So first things first, Dolene, when you saw that topic, what was the first thing that just came to your mind just looking at that particular topic?
Honestly, I would say I felt seen immediately. Yes, I felt seen. I know what it's like to desire marriage and feel like, you're the only one talking about it. In my circle, for example, many are focused on like careers, traveling, or independence. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a super ambitious person and I do not take my business or my career like for a joke. But for those of us longing for something deeper, it can feel a bit isolating, especially for someone that is in ministry and someone that has, let's say that kind of authority. It could feel a little weird or a little like out of place to show that you desire that. But what God has taught me is that just because it's not trending in culture or just because many people are not talking about it, it doesn't mean that our desire for marriage is wrong or is outdated. So your longing for marriage is valid.
I love that. So let's get down to the nitty gritty, right? So you are in this group where everybody, like you said, is more focused on their careers, their other passions, things like that. And then all of a sudden, you get to the point where you start talking about marriage. Why is that weird? Why has that become such an uncomfortable conversation amongst maybe, different generations, I believe, but primarily our generation and lower? Why has that become such an uncomfortable thing?
Yes, I think marriage has almost become, and for lack of better word, I will use the word taboo. Many have seen unhealthy marriages. I, for one, have seen unhealthy marriages. Many have rushed commitment, and some people have experienced or encountered like disappointment around marriage. And so there's almost a fear of committing, but silence doesn't change God's design. Your experience of like maybe you seeing maybe your parents not having a healthy marriage, or maybe your experience of getting hurt in the past or rushing your way into getting married doesn't change God's design. It only makes those who desire marriage feel alone. So I've been in conversations where I'm like, when I say like, oh, I want marriage and I'm desiring marriage, and I'll talk about the kind of man that I'm praying for and I'm desiring for, and they'll be like, oh, Pastor Dolene, like, you should be desiring this and this and this and this. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not either or. It's not like because I'm desiring marriage, I'm not desiring intimacy with God. So I think the key is knowing that, your timing doesn't have to match everyone else's timing, and your desire cannot be suffocated by other people's desire. But I really think it just stems out of like experiences and just the view of marriage in this current era.
I feel like you've touched two of my points because I was going to ask you two questions based on what you just said alone. But I'm going to pick one just to be lenient and just to give you time to, collect yourself. But my question is, as a believer, how do you balance your personal longing for marriage with God's time? How do you balance the two? Because understanding that God has the perfect timing and when the time is right, He will make it happen for you. How do you balance the two? So it's almost like how do you stop and say, okay, I need to have faith in God because He will bring that person for, I believe He will bring that person for me, but I'm ready to get a ring right now and get married right now.
Yeah. So I really think it just stems from my trust in God. I desire marriage, and this is like clear, clear, clear. No one can tell me nothing else, about my desire for marriage. I'm very expressive. I'm very verbal about it. I'm very like, yeah, this is what I desire. This is something that I am praying for and everything. And I have that desire, right? Of course, in some seasons, I have that longing a little bit more intensely than other seasons, but I'm able to manage my desire and my longing for marriage with, my view of God or my relationship with God or God's timing in a way that as I build my trust in God and I build my relationship and my belief and my view and my perspective of God, I know that He is a good God and He only knows how to give good things to His children. And because I am His daughter, and that is a desire, I believe that that desire was not placed there by myself. It was placed there by God. And so if He placed that desire in my heart, I know He will fulfill that desire according to His will and according to His purpose upon my life. Now, there are times where it's difficult, right? It's like, oh God, when? You go on social media and, I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone is getting married in Cameroon.
Like I remember when I was in college, right? So me and Peach got married at 24, 25 or 23, 24. And people were telling her, hey,
That's early. People now.
hold on, there's more. But there were people that got married before us that had been married longer than us, and they were 2, 3 years our junior. And so it comes to almost a cultural thing too. Like when in the college that we were at, I went to Liberty University. Woohoo! They tell us, well, not them, but the culture is ring by spring. So when you get in August, by spring, you kind of should be married by then. And we saw some people that fell into that. Now, some have really lasting and beautiful relationships today, and others didn't. So I guess I want to ask you, from a cultural standpoint, you mentioned that you're from a beautiful country called Cameroon. What is the idea of marriage there at maybe 20, 25, 30? Like what's the expectation for marriage there versus when you came here to Thailand? Did that change or was it the same?
Oh, absolutely different. Totally, totally different. But I would say also, like, just in Cameroon per se, the view of marriage back in the days and the view of marriage today is also completely different, right? In our parents' days, it was like, okay, how old are you? 21. You should be in your husband's house and stuff like that. And people were getting married very young in Cameroon, very, very young. And then things started changing. Women became a little bit more educated. It became a little bit more ambitious, became a little bit more self-driven and more independent and wanted to bring more value to themselves and be able to develop a little bit more work to themselves. And so that delayed the process of marriage for many people. And then we went back to the point to the very beginning where women wanted to get married a little bit younger. Why? Because of the economical situation of Cameroon. And so because of how hard things are, how hard it is to get a job, how hard it is to build a stable income to be able to build a business and everything, women resorted to just getting married so that they can have men take care of them. That is actually the current era we are. So right now in Cameroon, we have two-sided community of, let's say, women. One
Mm.
side of the women is like, oh, okay, I need to just get married as soon as possible to like someone that can take care of myself and just chill. And then the other part, it's like, oh no, I need to build my worth. I need to, have the degrees. I need to set up my business so that I can attract this caliber of men. And so now there's a little imbalance as to how it used to be in my parents' day. But all of that is very different from when I came to Thailand. And my life here in Thailand, I am in an international community. And so it's not just me being surrounded by Thai people, but it's me being surrounded by people from all over the world, people from America, people from the UK, people from, different part of Africa, different part of Asia. And so with that, the culture is very different. The expectation of marriage, or like when you get married, how you get married, who you get married to, is very different. But then because Ireland is such I would say it's a melting pot of culture, but it's a very transient city, right? So people come here in transition. People come here maybe as experts, or like, here for a short time and stuff like that. So people that are here usually are they're just exploring life. They want to have fun. They're probably like, okay, 1 year in Thailand, 2 years in Thailand. And so they're not really thinking marriage. They're not really thinking settlement like that. Rather than just, this is a season of my life where I want to explore. I want to uncover myself. I want to discover myself. And so being part of that community makes it a little bit hard because you forget about marriage, right? Because everyone's so in the mood of everything. Everyone is like building their careers, just getting stuff going, which is what happened to me. Like I've been in Thailand 12 years, right? And I've enjoyed my journey here from studying my bachelor's degree to studying my master's to getting a job at church to building my business and everything. It's been a long season and a process. But through all of that, I didn't really think, the longing and the desire for marriage was still there, and I will verbalize it, but I wasn't actively pursuing or like positioning myself or working on myself or like desiring or asking or even, intentionally praying for marriage because of the community that I was in. That was not a priority. Right. And even now it's still not a priority. I have to make that a priority because I'm like, oops, I woke up and I was 30 years old. Like I can't just continue to be oblivious of that, but definitely very different. The perception and the view of marriage back in Cameroon and here in Thailand is absolutely different.
That's absolutely spectacular.
I have a question for you as well, Dolene.
So, you have spoken about people constantly pursuing because marriage is not a priority on their list, right? And then at the very beginning, you also spoke about how certain people are scared of commitments only because they have seen failed marriages around them as well. Now, as a young person who is scared of failure in general, doesn't matter in what regard, and then being surrounded by people who have seen marriages fail, how do you think that fear of commitment becomes a problem in one's life, and how do you get over that?
I would say it all stems back to just trusting God. I think the irony of life is that we feel like we're in control. I feel like as a human being, whether you're a Christian, a Muslim, and Hindu, or whatever religion you come from, I think human beings just feel like they have such a power that they are in control. I'm in control. If I protect my heart this way, then I wouldn't get hurt. If I do this, then this will not happen. But the truth of the matter is that you actually are not in control, though. You really are not in control. Like, yes, there are measures and there are steps that you can do to guard yourself, protect yourself, make sure that, you get into the right relationship, make sure that, you're treated well and different things like that. But at the end of the day, the control and the power belongs to God. Just build your trust in God. When you build your trust in God, I feel like it's easier for you to open up and to be able to trust other human beings, because you're not actually just trusting the person involved in the relationship. You're trusting that person. You're trusting God with that person. If that makes sense. It's like, so if I'm like, okay, I've been hurt in the past. I really learned how to love deeply in the past, and I was really heartbroken, and I was rejected. I was disappointed. And I'm not able to trust anymore. I'm just going to control. I'm just going to shut my heart, or I'm going to just be able to look for this specific kind of man. That limits me, and that limits God's ability to move in my life if I'm putting all of these barriers and all of these boundaries. And I feel like we need to come to a point for myself and even for the girls in my circle is that we have to come to a point where we can set some healthy boundaries. And we need to, of course, we have to have boundaries, but we need to make sure that these boundaries are actually healthy boundaries, that they are boundaries about protecting your heart, but staying aligned to your purpose and staying aligned to the love of God and staying alive to the promises of God upon your life. So yes, I've been hurt in the past. If I position myself in a place where I just love genuinely and fully and everything, and I got hurt and I got rejected, I can heal from that. I can allow God to heal me, but I wouldn't let that steal away my longing. Because then what happened is that you meet people that are so unhappy. They desire love, they desire a marriage, they want it. And they're like, I just cannot because I've been burned in the past. But then there's that fight and there's that conflict between the heart and the spirit and the soul, because like, this is what I desire, but this is what the head is telling me. This is what my mind is telling me. This is what my heart is telling me. But well, wait, what does your spirit tell you? What does your soul desire? What is that purpose that God has placed in you about marriage? You can allow God to carry you. You can allow God to literally carry you and lead you in the right relationship. But you have to trust him and trust that the man that comes in your life, that you can trust him. You can just put him into God's hands as well.
Absolutely spectacular, Dolene. So now I have a question for you based on what you've said and what you've shared, right? You've spoken about setting up healthy boundaries as well for yourselves in the friend group that you are in, based on also the past trauma that you've experienced as well, right? Now, my question is, what are those healthy boundaries if you do happen to find yourself in a friend group that people have different goals and different values than you do? What are some of those practical boundaries to set in place that you might think of?
I really think boundaries are about protecting your heart and staying aligned with your purpose. You can love and enjoy friends while clearly communicating your priorities. For example, you might step back from conversations that normalize dating outside your values or pressure you into decisions, before God's timing.
Right.
Boundaries are not walls. They are literally just a guideline for growth. So boundaries are not rejection. They are protection for your purpose. So if I am in a community where people have my friends, for example, let's say, have different values or goals than me, I can still be friends with them by but still setting my priorities right as to like what my journey is looking like, what I am walking towards, what my purpose look like, what my calling is, and how they need to be able to respect those boundaries. It's not me rejecting them, but it's me literally protecting myself for the sake of my purpose.
Well, and I love that. I really love the fact that you say boundaries are not walls and it's not rejection, but it is just protecting myself. But here's my thing. If I have a friend that is grossly against marriage, but I am 100% for marriage, is that a type of friendship that I should continue to foster? Or should I move away from that type of friendship? Because, you have different people that are in these types of situations. So what would you suggest or recommend somebody that is struggling with a friend like that do?
Mm. I think it's very important for us to understand friendship. I really believe that each friendship has its purpose. Each friendship may have its season as well. There are friends that God bring together for a particular purpose. You may not agree on many other things. You may not agree on many other values or morals of yours, but then there is that purpose that needs to be fulfilled for why you guys are friends together. Now, it's very different for when you're in a friendship that you know for sure that this is not a friendship that God wants you to be in, but you stay in for your own, desires or anything. So if I was in a relationship, for example, with a friend, let's say one of my girls, and she's like my, ride or die kind of friend. And her views on marriage is like completely, she's against marriage or anything like that. But I know that this person, like this friend of mine, she's literally my soul sister. I wouldn't break the relationship because she doesn't agree or she doesn't value marriage as much as I do. I will just set those healthy boundaries that I said, well, this is your view. This is how you feel. This is what you think about marriage. This is my view. This is how I feel. This is how I think about marriage. We can protect our relationship by literally agreeing together not to have conversations about marriage. Especially if I know that this person is my soul sister. I know that God has placed us together for a purpose, for a reason, or even if it's just for a season. So I need to protect the purpose of the relationship beyond just the idea or the moral behind my desire and my longing for marriage. I don't know if that makes sense. But if I was in a relationship, let's say I go out, I'm traveling and I meet someone just, randomly and everything, and we vibe immediately. And then during lunch or anything, we start talking about marriage. And she's like, oh, no, I don't this. No, I don't do that. Like marriage. No. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love marriage. I think marriage is beautiful and everything. And we just from the get-go, we know that we are not aligned. And this is someone that I don't even know that much. I'm not really rooted with her. And I can tell that my spirit cannot, we just cannot connect together. Then I break that relationship right there and then, because there is no other purpose for the friendship. But if there is a purpose and there is a reason or a season for the friendship, I will hold on to that purpose and just set healthy boundaries as to how we can still love each other without clashing on each other's morals or values. Right. Yeah. And of course, marriage is in the scripture. There are several people that choose to abstain from marriage and not get married. So I can't say you're not a Christian or you're sinning for not desiring marriage, or God, you're against God, or, you're not building your relationship with marriage if your view of marriage is that. I can't say that because the scripture doesn't say that. But of course, those are things that you have to talk about in your relationships.
I love that. But I have a question again when it comes to that. You have been friends with this person for years, and the topic of marriage just has not come up for you guys to say that this is a relationship I don't want to continue, or a friendship I would rather let go of. Let's say you've gotten to that point where you guys are so close that you talk about everything, and I just don't understand why you're putting boundaries, because I don't want to get married. You want to get married. I want to talk about I don't want to say whole life, I'm sorry, but I don't want to talk about my life that is not godly centered, or there's this new girl that I just saw on the streets and I want to pursue this girl. But you are so grounded and rooted on marriage, and you don't want to talk about this because it doesn't align with who you are, right? How can we then protect our friendship that has gotten past the early stages to just let go of? And it has gotten to the point where we cannot just let go of this friendship, because we both value the friendship. We value transparency and openness with one another, but we just don't see eye to eye when it comes to the topic of marriage.
I think that's a really deep question. And I love that I love that you emphasize on the fact that you're already in a deep relationship with this person. When you're in a deep friendship with this person understands you. This person know that your desire and your thought towards them is thoughts of love, of care, and everything. Is nothing to, sabotage them or hurt them, or throw them under the bus or anything like that. I think in friendship like that, you can have those conversations, but you have to be intentional about okay, I really desire marriage, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to tell you about this new guy I just met, but I know you don't believe in marriage like that. Of course, it's gonna affect the relationship, and I feel like at the point, one of the person in the relationship would have to compromise. Because I'm like, if I'm so excited and I want to tell my bestie about this guy I just met and I think he's the one and everything, and I'm like, but I can't tell her because she's just like, you guys are going to start talking about marriage and everything, and it's just going to get into friction. But I think when you get to understand your friend and you get to understand and love them truly, you start understanding that their morals and their value is for their good. And so you cheer that on, even if you don't agree. You don't always have to agree on everything, but you can cheer someone on the path of joy and on the path of happiness if you truly love and truly care for them. And so I think it's a really tricky one. It's a tricky one for sure.
Dolene, we understand that you are a person of faith and Christian faith, right? And just want to ask you about, the difference between the perspective on marriage from the secular view and, of course, the biblical one. What would you say is the defining difference between the way people of, the secular or maybe even atheistic, or maybe even from another religious view, how they see marriage, and what the Bible describes as marriage. Like, what is the purpose of marriage according to these two contrasting or many contrasting views?
Yeah, I would say, of course, in the secular world nowadays, everyone have their definition of marriage, right? If you go on YouTube and you tap like, okay, let's say seminar about marriage or conferences about marriage, there are like a lot and lots and lots and lots of them. And different speakers and different gurus, marriage gurus have different perspective and different definition of marriage. To some people, marriage is like, okay, it's a contract. You have to make sure that this person take the boss and you're able to like collaborate. It's a collaboration. You have to collaborate for something beautiful. You have a marriage in other cases, it's like, okay, it's just a title. It's just a piece of paper. It's just this, it's just that. But truly, when we see the scripture and we see how beautiful marriage was back in the days of the scripture, we see that marriage is something honorable. The scripture literally says that man will leave his father and his mother, and he shall be collided or like joined to his wife, and together they shall be one. I don't think there was a better definition of marriage than this very purpose is that someone leaves everything, his comfort, his understanding, his mindset, his perception, and he joins to this other person. And together, it's no longer, oh, your perception of that is that, your view of that is that. This is what I think. This is what I want. Is that no? The moment they come into union together, they become one. It's like one God, but God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit in this beautiful union that cannot even be explained by human words. I see marriage in such an honorable way. Is that it's someone literally leaving all that they thought or all that they wanted, all that is to be with this person, so that together they can be one force, they can be one body, they can be something so beautiful. When I think of marriage for myself, of course, I have a list of like things that I want, like my man should have this and he should be this and he should be that and everything. But I think at the core and at the foundation of it, I just think of marriage like something that God ordained to give him glory. Now, which is really different from the world perspective, right? If you, like I mentioned, if you go to all this seminar and you go to all these conferences and people, they don't talk about giving God glory through the union. It's all about us, us, us. Okay, it's a piece of paper. You have to make sure that this person crosses this and this and this and that. You find the right person. You find a man that makes like six figures. You find a man that da 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 da. Which of course, to some extent, nothing is wrong with that. Of course, you have to be compatible. Of course, you have to find someone that you're equally yoked to. But the purpose, the ultimate purpose of that union is to give God glory. Which I think, like you said, if I was to differentiate biblical and a Christian view of marriage to the secular view of marriage, I would say it's literally a union to give God glory, which in the world is not the case. It's to give each other glory.
Do you think also that it's because of this reason that so many young people today, they just don't want to consider marriage? Is it because they have like the wrong perception of what marriage is all about?
I would say, yeah, to some extent. I would not say that is the sole reason why people don't, decide, young people choose not to get married. Of course, the view and the perception of marriage has been like, blatantly like distorted. I get broken when I get married. I've had, like I already mentioned, I'm the founder of Lumiere Breakscape. And so I have clients from all over the world, right? And I'll have conversation about marriage with them. I have clients, I've had clients that got married when they were very, very young and then got divorced. And now that view of marriage is just like, don't even go there. I've had clients that got married when they were old because then they understood marriage at that age when they were very old. So I've heard a lot of different views and different perception of like marriage and how people see it, how people feel about it. So I would say yes, for sure. One of the reasons why people don't fancy the idea of getting married is due to the distorted view or perception of marriage. But again, like we mentioned before, also due to the experiences that some of them may have had themselves or they have seen. But also social media has painted a view of marriage that is not. And so we know, because right now we are talking specifically about the young generation, right? The younger generation. For the younger generation, social media is like the school of knowledge, right? So they just feed off of everything from social media, and they see these images, this idea of marriage on social media, and they hold up to it. But that is not the real view of marriage. I think in the church, it will be really hard to understand that marriage was ordained by God in such a beautiful way to bring him glory. It will be hard for a believer and someone whose sole purpose is to give God glory, not desire marriage like that, unless God has really placed it in them. Right? Apostle Paul says it. He said, like, you should restrain. But then if you're burning with passion, please get married.
You mentioned the church, and I think that the church has a big responsibility in teaching about marriage and timing and just biblically what we should be doing within that mindset of marriage. So my question would be then, with Christians and the church, how could the church create a space where they talk about marriage and singleness in a balanced way? Because we talk a lot about marriage, and in my perspective, and I've been to many different churches, there's not a whole lot of talk about singleness unless the singles group goes off in their own, lunches or what's like. You guys talk about singleness, but should there be a balanced way of talking about singleness and marriage inside the church?
It's so funny because we have a little girls chat on Instagram. And just a few days ago, I sent them this conference. I think it was in Nigeria, and it was like a single girl summit or something. And I was like, oh my God, when are we going to have this? And I was talking about my church, obviously. I was like, when are we going to have this at ICA? And they were like, oh, we can organize that. You be the main speaker. I'm like, who will be the main speaker? What do I know about marriage or whatever? I'm like, we need like the women in the church that have healthy and successful marriages to be able to groom us and teach us and nurture us, to be able to know, to know the season we are in and to prepare ourselves in the season we are in. So we need the church, I would say the church needs honest, practical conversation. The season of marriage and the season of singleness. What we see in the church is that we focus so much on marriages, right? I think the church needs to wake up and start teaching us preparation and start teaching us character and start teaching us spiritual growth for singles. How to deal with the urges in our bodies, the desire, how to deal with fighting the flesh and fighting lust and fighting all these other things, how to prepare ourselves and how to change the mindset. Because I think with many, when I hear the church mentioning, single, they talk about waiting. What do you mean? I am not waiting. What am I waiting for? I am waiting. You are making me wait. This is supposed to be a preparation, right? This is supposed to be a preparation for me. It's not a pause. Marriage is beautiful, but singleness is not a pause. It's preparation. So can you act out, prepare us? So this is what I am asking and begging of the church, around the world and everywhere, is that, can you please prepare us for this season? Like, we are not, we are not in a season where our life is paused because we are not married yet, or we don't have our partner yet and everything. No, we are in a preparation season, but you need to teach us preparation, and not just pressure about waiting. I would say the church needs to encourage marriage as a blessing, not as a benchmark for success. And culture does this a lot. Culture does this a lot. And I can talk about the African culture. It's like, where every time, even my mom, every time I talk to my mom, she'll always mention something about it. Like, she wouldn't want to make me feel bad, but she would be like, so you mean you're not seeing anyone? So, this one son, my friend's son in Canada, is single. And I'm just like, Mom, can you leave me alone? I'm like, can you just the view of singleness is like, oh, you haven't made it yet. Once you get married, then success, then you're successful. But no. And so I really think that the church should have that balance between giving attention to marriages or the married people, but also giving that same level of attention to the single people. There needs to be that balance. And balance isn't ignoring singleness. It's celebrating its purpose while preparing for marriage.
There's a lot of times when I look at the church as a whole, right? Like not one particular church, but the church as a whole. And I say, yes, they're supposed to be preparing people for the next stage in life that God is preparing them for. Or I also say that some of the issues that we have in culture today is because the church did not stand up in the way that they were supposed to stand up, or love people in the way they were supposed to love people, or sometimes even rebuke people when they were supposed to rebuke people. And therefore, if you don't create culture, culture will create itself.
Come on.
And so I look at the fact that a lot of people, like you mentioned it earlier, feel like it's taboo for them to talk about marriage is because they have not been in that position to feel like they're being prepared. And so for me, if I don't feel like I'm being prepared for something, I'm not going to talk about it. I want to avoid it like the plague because I don't know. I'm afraid to fail. And so it is a responsibility of the church to be able to establish some type of training ground for the people that are wanting to pursue marriage, or I would just say anybody, period, but just those who want to pursue marriage. This is our mission field to prepare them. And guess what? When they finally get married and they are prepared, guess who's going to be training the next season of people who want to be married? Those same people. And so I always battle with some people like that where they say, oh no, people can, like you said, go online and go to a conference. And if they really want to learn about marriage, they can do it on their own. Why would I want to take that risk to learn the wrong thing? To learn the potential, not godly view of marriage, but instead learn the godly view of marriage and then practice that as I walk towards whoever God has for me. If I was single, in that lifetime.
And this is supposed to be your home. Like you are nurtured and you are groomed at home. It's almost like telling me like, oh, just go on YouTube and listen to Sunday sermon from any church around the world. No, I go to my home church and I eat from my home. I eat at the table with my family. That is where the primary nourishment comes from. It's at the table with my family in my home. And so now the problem that we have with the church is like we are now doing damage control because we did not prepare the single people to be ready for marriage. And so they get into marriage either like rush commitment or just like the pressure of timing. Timing is a big factor, right? Timing is a big factor because it's like, okay, I can wait. Like 1 year you're waiting. Okay, not too bad. 2 years, 3 years, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm 30, I'm 35, and there's that rush. And so with that pressure, and that rush commitment, people now get into marriage without being really prepared. But who is supposed to prepare us? It's supposed to be our church. And so now the church is dealing with like marriages and couples that are having problems and issues because these are things that they were not prepared for prior to marriage. So I think we need to do things in a systematic way from the beginning. Let me prepare the single lady. Let me prepare the single man so that they are ready for marriage and they have an understanding of what they're getting into so that when they get to marriage, they can enjoy it fully with the full understanding of what, of course, I'm not saying that you understand everything about marriage before you get into marriage, but there is a level of preparation that is a prerequisite to a successful marriage.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? With all of this, and we're talking about both the churches that need to do better, but I also want to validate the churches that actually are doing that. Like they are actually providing those types of services and those types of mentorship for single people that want to be married. Like for those that are doing it, fantastic. One last thing. And listen, we have been mentioning a lot about the ladies, but also a lot of the things that Dolene has been talking about today is also able to be utilized by men as well. So don't think that we're only talking about ladies today, but the idea, the practicality, the need for understanding the biblical foundation that your future marriage should be built upon can be seen from both sides of the table. So I do want to say, Dolene, everything you said today, absolutely fantastic. But with marriage aside, what is the biggest lesson God has taught you about love and timing?
There's no doubt that God's timing is perfect. It's perfect. God's timing is perfect. And at the specific time, it doesn't feel like it's perfect, right? Because you're like, oh, no, no, I can't wait, and different things like that. But God's timing is perfect. And my value, my joy, my purpose are never determined by when someone else arrives in my life. God has taught me to be able to receive unconditional love first and foremost from Him. I think if you're able to receive love from God, knowing yourself and knowing who God is, like, I don't deserve to be loved by such a perfect and holy God, but He loves me regardless. I think that has been one of the ways in which I've learned about love, and what He has taught me about love and about His timing is first understanding and being in a position, training me to be in a position to actually receive love. And so receive love from God, but also receive love from this man that is coming. And so in this timing, and I honestly feel like, okay, I am late. I am a little late because I always thought I would get married by 25 and, have my first kid by 27 and everything. But the more I know and the more I receive God's love, the more I trust His timing, and the more I believe that truly, truly God's timing is perfect. So your story is unfolding, your story is unfolding on purpose. Embrace every season, pursue holiness and wholeness, and let God write your love story. That's what I tell myself every single time that I desire and the longing is getting intense. And I'm like, God, you're delaying, because many times would feel like God is delaying, but He's not. He's not delaying, but we can feel that as human. Like, God, you're delaying this promise. You're delaying. It should be here already. Every time I feel that intense longing for my person to come and my person to find me, I always tell myself, Dolin, your story is unfolding on purpose. Embrace the season of preparation. Embrace the season you're in right now. Pursue holiness, and let God Himself write your love story. And so that's what I would tell any single lady or even men that are listening to me at this very time, is that anytime you feel the intense urge and desire and longing for marriage, and you feel like God is delaying and that the timing, that the time is not coming, tell yourself this: God is always on time and His timing is always perfect.
That's absolutely beautiful, Dolin. Thank you very much for taking the time for joining us today here at Dad Squad Solutions. Your input and your contribution has really been much valuable. For me, as the single in the house, of course, I took it in, I received it, and I really learned from it. And one thing that did stick with me was at the end as well, embracing every season that I'm in. And there you go, listeners. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode that has come to a conclusion with our lovely guest speaker, Dolin Lumiere, in the house. And the word of the day is embrace every season. If you like this episode and you would like to stay connected, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, share this video, like this video, and just go ahead and drop your opinions and your comments in the comment section down below. And we would love to continue the conversation with each and every one of you guys. Until then, adios.